Everybody for tuning in tonight to the Boiler Express podcast. I know we had missed last week, so I appreciate everybody tuning in tonight and apologize for that. That's not our norm, but we're back in action this week. And we'd like to start today's episode a little bit differently than we normally do. We'll start our intro here in a little bit. But as some of you may know that follow one of our fellow podcast mates, Dylan Kuhn, on Twitter, 2 days ago was the 1 year anniversary of his father passing. His father was a diehard Boilermaker, went to Purdue, and really fostered that love and passion that Dylan has for Purdue athletics. And so Dylan's not able to be on here tonight, but he did ask me to read a message that he wanted everybody to hear. So I'm going to read that, and then we will carry on with the show as Dylan and his dad would want us to do. So Monday, the 27th, was the 1 year anniversary of my dad's passing. This is Dylan's dad. Even though I can't make it on tonight's episode, I wanted to make sure to thank every single person in the Purdue community who has shown me love, not just yesterday, but every day since I lost my dad. He was and will forever be the reason that I'm a Boilermaker. I can't thank our incredible community enough for your kind words and messages. Especially want to thank my guys, Damon, Chris, Frank, Russ, and Nick, for allowing me to join the Boilermaker Express podcast. It's something I look forward to every week. The future of this podcast is bright, and I'm lucky to be a part of it. Boiler up forever. So that was a message from Dylan tonight. We're thinking of you, Dylan, this week. We know it's a tough week, and we look forward to having you back next week with us. So, Chris, if you want to go ahead and hit that intro.
Shot clock down to 9. Klein can't dribble himself free. He's going to have to take a long one. Klein, step back, 3 for the tie. Oh! He's done it again! They get it to him. More in space. A burst of speed. A first down for Purdue. He's still going. More. Cuts back. Touchdown. Oh, like that. Each one more.
All right, everybody. Well, as I said at the beginning here, welcome back to the Boiler Express podcast. I am your host, Ultimate Boiler. We've got the regulars here as always, minus Dylan tonight, but we've got Russ, Frank, Chris as well. We have a special guest with us tonight. We have Purdue Basketball Hall of Famer Walter Jordan with us tonight. Walter, we're extremely excited to have you on the show. We're excited to pick your brain, get to know you a little bit more, and talk about some Purdue basketball. So thanks for being on the show.
Well, I appreciate it. If you can't get fired with that intro, I don't know if anything can fire you up. I'm sitting there thinking, wow, got goosebumps just watching that all over.
That's what I love to hear. I'm so excited.
Good stuff.
Yeah, it's I don't think watching the highlights of especially the Tennessee game when Ryan Klein hit those threes, I don't think that could ever get old.
Shivers every single time that clip plays.
Yeah,
amazing. Absolutely.
Yeah, so Walter, we've got some questions for you tonight. Like I said earlier, we just want to pick your brain, get to know you a little bit more. You did play Purdue basketball back in the 70s, and I would love to just know a little bit more about that. So you played also with a lot of NBA talent. I was looking up the roster from that era. I think there was 4 or 5 guys you played with that probably ended up playing in the league along with you as well. Joe Barry Carroll being one of those. Guys, so tell me a little bit about that. What was it like playing at Purdue back in the 70s? And, if there's anything different, or what would you say sticks out most about the differences, maybe around campus or just Purdue from then to now? What are some of those big differences that you see?
Well, I think that the Boiler Nation is still Boiler Nation. I always thought it was the best in the country. First of all, I think I was blessed to play in the era I played in. I played against the Magic Johnsons, the Larry Birds, the 2 Indiana teams that was undefeated and won the national championship. Michigan went to the Final Four. In fact, my junior year, I think all 4 teams that went to made it to the Final Four we played against. So played against UCLA when they was on that long winning streak with Marcus Johnson and Richard Washington, two bookend All-Americans. And so every day you had to lace them up. We played against Larry Bird twice, played against Scott Mays of the world. You name them. Michigan had All-Americans, Ricky Green and Phil Hubbard. Minnesota had Kevin McHale and Michael Thompson. And Wisconsin had Wes Matthews. And even Northwestern had an NBA player, Billy McKinney. And so every game you had to lace them up. Unfortunately, we only took 32 teams to the dance, and you had to win the Big Ten at that time to get an automatic bid. If you finished second or third, there was a chance you were not going to get invited to the dance. We never finished any worse than third in my 4 years there. So, and as tough as that competition was, I felt that we got to the dance and we drew North Carolina, and we ended up playing North Carolina, who was ranked 1, 2, or 3. I forget which ones they were ranked, depending on what poll you're looking at. We had to play them on their court. In the tournament, and we were winning, and we had a 6-point lead about a minute and 30 seconds to go, and we ended up losing the game. So I felt like we had an awful lot of talent. We had. I think one of the most talented teams at Purdue, Wayne Walls and the Bruce Parkinson, Jerry Seaston, Eugene Parker. We had a bench. We had guys that love to play big in big games. We showed up for big games. We love the big game. You name it, we play Indiana anytime, anywhere, no matter what. and the four times we played them when they were undefeated those 2 years, we lost to one game. We were freshmen and sophomore. We started 3 freshmen, and we had them beat 3 out of the 4 times. That team, we had them beat 3 out of the 4 times. And one game I remember we shot 60% from the field. I think we had like 4 turnovers, and we ended up losing by 2 points. That's how good they were. And they went on to win the championship. We beat Michigan State and Magic. We split with them. Last time I played against Magic, we beat Michigan State. We know what happened to him. We split with Bird and Indiana State. So those experiences stand out. I got a chance to play with Larry in high school, play with the gold medal team in the World University Games. A friend of mine. Had a lot of respect for him and those kind of things. So just those kind of things, competition, and also the relationships that I built with my teammates and also Boilermaker Nation.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's so cool to hear about just the wealth of talent that you got to play with and then had to play against every night. Like you said, you had to lace them up and be ready. It didn't matter who you were playing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. So a little bit about that, because the game's changed so much over the years. What are some things you are glad have changed? And then what are some things from the time when you played that you kind of wish were still there?
I wish the Big Ten was the way it was as far as physicality. I thought that was a very physical conference, and we were known for that. Mm-hmm. And now the officials, I think, are so inconsistent. We don't know what they're going to call.
Don't get me started, sir.
Yeah, I mean, we you're playing against McHale and Michael Thompson. Those guys. Michael Thompson, College Player of the Year, better than Clay, his son. And then it was like every year, Big Ten teams are ranked in the top 10. We had 5 or 6 teams ranked in the top 10, but yet and still only 1 or 2 got to go to the dance. So. Wow. Everybody outside of Big Ten knew the Big Ten was clearly the best conference. It wasn't a debate. Big Ten was clearly the most dominant conference, but they only took one of us, so it's automatic bid. But I look back and I think about, I like the athleticism of the game today. I think these guys are phenomenal athletes. They can run and jump, and they should be better because they got the exposure now. They got the year-round training. They got all this stuff. They can watch basketball 24/7. We didn't have that luxury, so you can expand your vision and what you can do physically. Those trainers out there, they're state-of-the-art, diets now, and weightlifting and all the stuff that we didn't get a chance to experience, but they're experiencing now. Nutritionists, the way they eat. I remember starving on Sundays because we didn't eat. We couldn't find the cafeterias was closed, so we didn't eat on Sundays. Can you imagine athletes being able to find a place to eat? I had to find a girlfriend real quick, but I have nothing but I'm glad they're finally paying these kids for their likeness. There still need to be some control, but I like the fact that they are finally doing that because But I like a lot of things about today's game. I like the fact that it's so unpredictable. You don't know, anybody can beat anybody. Uh, Kids are not afraid for the most part because they play in these AAU travel basketball organizations all around the country when they're 14, 15, 16, 17. So they see these guys everywhere. They know these guys. They're not afraid of them. So you can get a freshman that coming in like the two freshmen at Purdue, three freshmen at Purdue. They're not afraid. They're not afraid. Braden Smith will play against anybody, anywhere. He's tough as they
Hmm.
come. So that
And
that
he's
excites.
probably seen a lot of those guys through those AAU circuits and stuff.
Absolutely, and I can relate to Braden and Fletcher Lawyer and a little bit. The ranking thing. You're a 5-star, 4-star. Who gives a damn? The bottom line is, can you play? It's not about your age, about your game. And as freshmen, that's what we felt with Eugene Parker and Wayne Walls when we came into Purdue. Uh, let's go play. It doesn't matter. And so I like the attitude that they have. I like the swagger. They're so much fun to watch. I told somebody the other day, they was complaining about Purdue. I said, you know what I found out when I coached basketball? I said, what's that? I said, I found out I'm a hell of a coach when my players make some shots. When they make some shots, I really look good. So,
Yeah, that's we were talking before we went live a little bit, and we'll get more into it, but just to touch on it briefly, uh, if you look at the stats, against the game against IU, we played pretty well. It was just that they just weren't falling. We had a lot of open shots, and it just wasn't our night. But we'll get more into that later. Frank, Russ, you guys want to take the next one?
Yeah, so tell us about your book, Gracefully Broken, and what kind of sparked your interest in writing that.
well, one of the things I see as I'm involved in the community here in Atlanta, well, Fort Wayne, Indiana, as well as here in Georgia. I'm involved with youth, and I speak a lot around the country. And I have a youth leadership conference I do. In fact, last year I had Ben Baker from the Milwaukee Bucks who trained Giannis. He was my keynote speaker
Oh,
on a
wow.
youth conference. So what we do is we cater to young men and try to get them to understand life skills, leadership skills, be productive, how important getting your education is, all the stuff everybody talks about. So I've been doing that for about 20 some years. I also have a youth program here in Georgia where I had 170 kids in my summer travel basketball program. So we use that to also get to kids. So one of the things I found out was that, during the pandemic when everybody was lying and everybody's lying about everything. And I said, I need to tell some people my story. I need people to know that I have flaws, that I failed, that my kids think I'm perfect. Everybody think I'm perfect. No, I'm not. Kids don't want to know how perfect you were. They want to know you fell down too. They want to know you fell down. They can relate to that. And this is how you get back up. And so one day I just told my wife that I'm going to write a book and I'm going to be transparent about my life. I'm going to talk about all my flaws and my mistakes, my failures. I want people to see me. I'm tired of people lying about how great I was, how great I know. I'm human just like everybody else. We all fall short. And the only one that don't have problems, they're called dead people. So what I want to do is tell my truth. So if the Lord takes me home, my kids would know and my grandkids would know. And so I just started writing. I had no idea I'd write a book. I'm a writer anyway. I read and write every day. I love to read and I love to write.
Oh,
You
awesome.
give me something, I'm gonna read. I'm an avid reader. And
Nice.
so I just started writing one day. And next thing I know, I wrote 6 chapters. And I said, wow. And then I said, well, I need to look at publishing this. And I called my sister and I've been trying to get a title after about 2 months. And she says to me, she said, I don't have to read your first 6 chapters. She said, I know the title of your book. I said, what is? She said, because I know you. She said, you've been broken. She said, but you're broken gracefully.
Hmm.
She said, the name of your book is Gracefully
Wow.
Broken. And from there, a book was formed. And my brother
Mm.
says it all the time. Said, you didn't write the book, you just surrendered, and God wrote the book.
Oh, cool.
Nice.
And so the respect that I've been, the favor and the grace that I've been given because of that book blows me away. I mean, the memorabilia, the people that showed up at the book signing, I can tell you stories make you cry, but I'm not going to do that today. It has touched my heart from people pouring
Mm.
out their love for me and respect for me around the country. and people travel in 2 or 3 or 4 hours. Quick story: Doug Babilia in the rain, the manager at Purdue when I was at Purdue, drove up from Evansville to meet me in Indianapolis just to get his book signed. One of my high school teammates flew in from Florida, surprised me, flew in from Florida just to come to Indianapolis for my book signing and flew out that night.
Wow.
And I had the last story I'm gonna share. I got so many stories. I'm sharing one story.
Oh, it's all right. Tell him.
Yeah.
One gentleman drove up from Illinois, and he said he had to come see me. I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "My dad was your biggest fan." He said, "He was at Purdue and you were at Purdue. You stayed in the same dorm when you were freshmen." He said, "He followed you ever since." He said, "You made such an impression." He said, "My dad's no longer here." He said, "But I had to come tell you the story." I said, "Okay." He's telling me a story. He said, "By the way, my name is Walter."
Wow.
Oh, wow.
And he said, "My middle name is Jordan."
That's awesome.
Wow.
And I tear up thinking about that.
Wow.
Yeah.
And guess what? He didn't even look like me. So, I mean, you talk about favor and being blessed and being emotional and understanding, trying to understand God's grace and favor. It just blows me away. You can't make this stuff up. And I'm just so humbled by all of it. Truly am.
Yeah, that's awesome. And just from the stories that you shared there briefly, and the way you talked about your book, it's just great to hear. I think it really drives home what it means to be a Purdue Boilermaker. The type of attitude that you have to have. You fall down, you get back up, and you surround yourself with people that are there to support you, and fly all the way from Florida to come get their book signed, or drive up from Evansville to Indianapolis, or drive up from Illinois. That I think that's that's awesome. Those are great. Yeah.
It's a very specific DNA to be a Boilermaker.
Oh, absolutely. I have never, I tell people all the time, everywhere I go, Purdue fans have never let me down. They have never let me down. I love them to death. It's a love affair. You have the one or two that don't handle it well, don't understand to be a true, real fan. But you have to put up with them too, because it makes us better, make us continue to do what we have to do to try to encourage people and keep them. My number one thing is to try to keep these kids encouraged, because I know they're also on Twitter, they're also on social media, and also recruits are also on social media, and their parents are also on social media. So we have to be very, very careful, because we're not helping the recruiting process at all.
Right.
So we have to be very, very careful with what we put out there.
Preach.
You can think. It's okay to think some of the things we think, because sometimes we have negative thoughts too, but it's the way you do it, respectfully, not disrespectfully. And so we have to be very, very careful of that, because I'm not going to go out and badmouth Matt Painter because I think differently. He could have done something differently as a coach. You know what? That's idiotic. He's the coach. He's the damn coach.
Right.
So we all have to have a role to play. And we all have to remember that, even though I'm thinking that, I'm not going to put it out on social media so everybody to see it. That's not doing anybody any good.
Yeah, I think he's made some similar comments to what you said earlier, that, when we're making shots, he looks really good, but when we're not, all of a sudden he's on the hot seat now. Like,
oh, absolutely. I mean, it's crazy, isn't it? It's amazing. It's amazing.
There's no one in this entire stratosphere of Purdue sports that's more irritated than those guys in the locker room.
Absolutely.
And that's what people have to remember. Like, as mad as we are when things don't go right, multiply it by 1,000, and that's what those guys are.
Absolutely. And what I have done in the last couple of years, I reach out to those guys via private messages. I have their phone numbers. I text them after every game when they're down. When they're going well, hey, great game, good job. When you're down, they need to be encouraged. Hey, keep going, keep your head up. Those are the kind of things we have to do, especially as a Purdue athletic family. We're all like family. We believe gold and black, so we're not going to badmouth the kids. No kid's not trying to miss a shot or turn the ball over. You see his head down. You see he's struggling. So what we need to do is keep beating him up? No, we need to encourage him, help him get his head up, because we've been there. We've had situations, and all of us been there in our personal lives. Every day is not a good day. Every day is not a good day. Sometimes we struggle mentally, emotionally, physically. Okay, we need somebody to pick us up. So I'm always mindful of that, and I try to encourage people to do that. Just pick people up. It's okay. You'll feel better when you do that, as opposed to smashing people.
Yeah,
Cool.
absolutely.
So I need to find a brick wall to run through.
Yeah, I can't wait to
Yeah.
clip some of these statements from this this pod already. Like, I'm ready to go. Like, buy his book, y'all. If you don't got it, buy it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that. And if
And
they
But
want,
I think
if
he makes a
anybody
really good point. It
go ahead.
kind of goes back to what Matt Painter had said on his show. I think it was last week, and that's the piece of advice he gave was don't take criticism from someone you wouldn't take advice from.
Amen.
He said, if Joe Smith says on Twitter, Purdue needs to run more zone or needs to get more technicals or needs to interact with the officials in a different way, that goes right over my head. But if Bob Knight wants to say something about my coaching, I'm going to listen. So he says, but those things that go over my head, they don't necessarily go over the players' heads. So they read things on Twitter, recruits read things on Twitter, and they may interpret that differently. So it's good to know that there's, people around them, that community, yourself included, who are able to give them guidance when they need it most. That's really encouraging to hear.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'll be 100% honest. I kind of wish that Painter would go back to the no Twitter policy during the season.
yeah, that changed what, like 4 or 5 years ago?
It was like, I think it was the season before COVID or maybe the season before that. But like, I don't know, like, because I will read Twitter and I'll be like, God, I hope no one in the team or the staff or Painter or anybody is reading any of this because it is god awful to read. I get mad and I'm nowhere near the program. Like, I couldn't imagine being within it. Like, I would just, and I'm opinionated, as some of the guys in here would agree with.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, I wouldn't be able to keep my mouth shut. I'm glad I'm not part of the program because I'd get suspended in a heartbeat.
And a prime example of that, I mean, just look back from when Coach Walters was hired. The immediate reaction was just so polarizing for some reason. The guy hasn't even done anything yet. He's not even. I mean, he literally just flew into campus, and everybody had an opinion about this guy because he wasn't already a head coach. And guess what? We've hired people that were head coaches before, and it didn't turn out well for the football program. So I don't know why that has to be such a moniker for somebody to coach our football team, to have that head coaching experience. But yeah, I mean, yeah, go ahead.
I agree with you 110%. One of the things that I've learned is that it's usually the same people. It's their makeup. It's who they are. It's their DNA.
Yeah.
It's who they are. They're going to do them no matter what. They're looking
Just negative people, regardless of what's
they're
going on.
looking to start mess. And I always say that the ear is a human magnet for negativity.
Mm-hmm.
And some people just love that mess. They love to create it. They love to throw it out there. So what I do, I might read something and I'll laugh because I got 60 brothers. I'm the seventh child, so I have to be thick-skinned. Trust me.
Oh yeah.
I had 7 boys in one bed, so I had to be thick-skinned. So
Thick skin and know how to fight. Jeez.
Absolutely. Got my butt kicked a few times, but when I read it, I'll read it and I'll laugh and I'll block them automatically. I block them because if it's way off the cuff, I mean, like way off the cuff, fire Matt Painter. I mean, you're clueless. And hire who?
Exactly.
Right.
Like,
how hard it is to win in the Big Ten and do what he's done with no one thought in October that we'll be in this position. You have to be an idiot. Seriously, I hate to say that, to think you should fire him based on what this team has done this season.
1,000%.
Everybody's taking the last 2 weeks and just kind of cramming it all together. One player in particular that I love, and I know is going to be a fan favorite for their entire tenure here, is just Braden Smith. And the reason I bring him up is just for his mentality. I don't know him personally, so I can't say it for 100% for sure what's going on inside of him. But man, it seems like if he has an off game, that next game, he is so fired up. He's so ready to go. He's just a passionate player. I remember during the IU game, that first time out that was called, Purdue got up like 13-6. You could just see he was just letting it all out. He was fist pumping. He was screaming and yelling. He's just a guy that, man, he's going to give you 110%. I don't think, he stopped sprinting for the 35, plus minutes that he probably ends up playing a game. So yeah, I absolutely love Braden, and I think that his attitude, I think he's in a great position right now because he's getting fostered and taught by guys that understand. Zach Eady's the other upperclassmen that have been in those situations that know how to handle those or have learned how to handle those. So I think he's going to really turn into a great leader, especially in those later years with the team. So I'm just excited for the future as well.
And one of the things with Braden Smith and Frederick Laurier and even Cable First and those other guys, they're 18 years old. They are going to develop physically. They're going to get. I grew 3 inches in college. I came in at 6'5" and left at 6'8". I've never been a big guy. I was always thin and skinny, but I got a lot stronger. These guys are in the weight room. They got trainers, nutritionists. They are going to get stronger, and Fletcher's going to not be the same body in the next year or two. He's not going to be that. So when he gets bumped then he's not going to feel it. He's going to be able to finish some of the shots he's not finishing going to the rim.
It'd be like hitting a wall.
Oh, absolutely. And because they play so hard, I'm sure they're eating right. I'm sure they're taking care of their bodies. So people look at these guys and say, man, they got so much upside. It's scary. It really is frightening. And even Edie is not nearly as good as he's going to be. He's not nearly as good as he's going to be. And you can't stop him now.
And I think it's back to that old adage, what are you doing for me now?
Yeah,
instead of what's happening in 2 years. Right now they're great. They're awesome. They're fantastic players. But when they're juniors, they're going to, you get Braden Smith with 2 years under his belt going into his junior year, that kid's going to be a monster. I mean, he's going to know everything, especially when you add in guys like Miles Colvin and stuff like that coming up. Like, man, this team's already talented, but I mean, the weapons for him are only going to get better, and it's going to only free up guys like Fletch and TKR and stuff like that. And that's why, kind of going back to what you said, anybody who says that Painter needs fired just needs to delete Twitter. They're just dumb. I'll say it right now. You're dumb. Like, it sends me to the moon how many times I see that, and I just want to strangle somebody. I'm like, why would you say that? Like, and I always compare it to this, is when Bo Pelini got fired at Nebraska. Like, they were averaging 8 to 9 wins a season, and they haven't had a 9-win season since.
Yeah, absolutely. Name a program that's done as well as Purdue's done since Matt Painter's been there.
With what they've recruited star-wise.
Well, even that, because to me, people forget that Jaden Ivey was not a 5-star, 4-star player. They forget Travion Williams was not a 4 or 5-star player. They forget these guys, Eric Hunter and Thompson. Those guys were not 4 or 5-star players. They were not. Even though they grew in Ivy in 2 years, look what Ivy developed into. Look what Travion developed into. They're developing these kids. They're getting better. If your players are getting better, you're doing something right. But when you're on Twitter and you're talking about firing a coach, if I'm a recruit and I see that, my son's thinking about maybe I shouldn't go to Purdue. This guy's 24-5 or whatever our record is, and you're talking about firing the coach?
Yeah.
And I'm looking at Purdue to come to Purdue, and you guys are talking about firing this coach?
Yeah. I would love to see what the record is for the lowest recruit rating to win National Player of the Year. Azedi's got to be there. He's what? He was what? 453, 459.
Yeah, he's probably
in the recruiting class. It's got to be really close.
It's got to be him. Got to be. Yeah, it's got to be. So I don't buy into that and hope Boiler Nation is not buying into that crap.
Yeah.
I do think it is a minority, that's saying that now.
It is.
It wasn't always that way. I think the majority of the fan base has really bought into what Painter is doing, but it's the people who seem to know the least that are always screaming the loudest, unfortunately.
I like that.
Like
that. Zone.
So Purdue basketball, we had our big rivalry game this past weekend against IU. It was a dogfight. I mean, players on both teams had good games. but Zach was, I think he went 26 and 14 that game. Jalen Hood-Schifino had an unprecedented game. He's a very good player, and hopefully he goes to the NBA. I wish him all the success as long as he's not in a red and white uniform. So the first half, we'll just kind of start there, kind of break that down a little bit. I thought it was a really good game. I thought it was very back and forth. But man, I was watching it and I was like, man, every time, and this just goes back to just shots, unfortunately, just not falling. It was like every time we got like a 6-point lead or, 4 or 5 points, it was like we had that opportunity to grow that lead a little bit. And then, that ball just wouldn't go in. And unfortunately, we're not the best at transition defense. It's just a statistically true thing. And, that was kind of biting us in the tail a little bit. But how did you guys feel so far, at least in the first half of that game?
Me personally, well, I felt good at halftime. I thought for sure, even in Bloomington when we were down, I felt good.
Yeah.
I wanted to see. I was curious to see how we responded in Bloomington in the second half. I was really pleased. That told me a lot about those guys to do what they did in Bloomington. But in West Lafayette, the whole game, I just sensed that we were tight on our shots. With the free throws, we couldn't make free throws. We were excellent free throw shooting team. Our free throw shooters were missing one-on-ones, and those things add up in a game like that. Then they wasn't missing. So every opportunity we had to get the free ones, we need to get the free ones. We gave them some second shot opportunities that resulted in open 3-point looks, and we were just not shooting the basketball. It's the last 2 3-pointers we shot at the end of the game we made because wasn't no pressure on us. We knocked those down. And you say, where would that be in the whole game? There was no pressure now. The tenseness was gone. It was like, oh, we're going to lose and might as well shoot this my regular shot. I mean, guys, we had great looks. We did not finish, and we didn't execute, I thought, defensively at the right time to make a run. We had a chance to make a run a couple times, and we let them off the hook, and then we missed free throws, and we turned the ball over. So we had opportunities, and so I'm encouraged because I know if we play them again, I think we're going to beat them. Clearly, they played their best game of the year, and we played our worst, and we still was in the game, guys. We still was there right there, so.
Yeah, I appreciate Nick and what he adds to our group thread. I know he hasn't got on here with us in the pod, but it's really stung when he's posted the post-game statistics for both IU games that say, oh, IU only wins on average 10% of the time with the shot selection and the shots that they took and with the shots we took and the way we shoot. It's like you watch the games and literally IU is making shots that you normally wouldn't make or that are tougher shots, and we're missing uncontested threes. And it's just like if we make half the shots we should have and they miss 3 or 4 shots, all of a sudden we're the team that won by 8 points. And you're not really saying we don't deserve to win because we got all the looks. We just didn't make them.
Well, it's like I said before we got on here, if you told Matt Painter that Trey Jackson Davis was going to be held to 10 points in that game, he'd have taken that 11 out of 10 times.
Oh, yeah.
Because he went for 33 or something like that in Bloomington. But they scored on what we forced them to do, and it was just problematic. Like, I'm not mad about losing that. Well, I take that back. I'm mad about losing that game, but I'm not mad about losing that game if it makes sense.
It's like how we lost.
So I'm more mad about losing the game to Maryland like we did than I am losing the game to IU. Because the Maryland game, I just felt like we got outran. Where this game, I felt like we did everything we wanted to. We just couldn't make shots, and they couldn't miss.
Yeah, and that 10-0 run killed us when we didn't kill the drag in the first part of that second half. We got a little bit away from it, and then all of a sudden, now we're like, okay, well, we're down double digits, so we go back to it, or we try to keep shooting our way into it, and then we just kind of, I think, struggle a little bit at that point. But yeah,
we
pretty indecisive.
Yeah, we got to have 1 or 2 guys off the bench that can handle mentally when you're struggling to come in. No, I got to make some plays. I got to make a shot. I got to be strong enough. We're struggling right now. They need me. We got a couple talented guys off the bench that can come in and do that for us. And there's just got to be more consistent. They've got to pick their spots and say, okay, today my team needs me. Yep. I got to step up.
Gillis and Newman come to mind first with that kind of role. Gillis, very much so. I'm huge on Gillis. I think he's a great player. I love his bulldog, and it's a recency kind of thing, but Grady Eifert mentality to me. Like he's just he does everything you need him to that doesn't show up on the stat sheet. He's diving for balls, he's fighting guys, he's setting hard screens, he's doing all that type of stuff. And then he hits 9 threes during Penn State game. Whatever. But like that dude is just I just love his mentality. Like he's that lunch pail mentality type guy that I just absolutely love. And it seems like our great Purdue teams always have those type of guys.
No, absolutely. And I think Brandon can fit that mold too if he just become a little bit more tougher mentally, because he's got all the athletic ability in the world. He can shoot the ball. Mentally, I think he's just got to get a little bit tougher and stronger, because we're going to need him, and I think he can be a big part of what happens moving forward for this team.
He wears his emotions on his sleeve, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, he can play. He can be a lockdown defender if he chooses to be. And I thought he did a great job defensively and effort wise, and we got to have that from him every game. He'll start to knock down these shots hopefully too here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like you said, consistently and when we need it, because they have the ability. They've shown it. We've had how many guys come off the bench and score 20-plus points, this game. And, DJJ, David Jenkins Jr. He's going to be a 2,000-point scorer by the end of his career. So, we definitely have the ability. It's just, getting that consistency and being able to turn it on when we need it, for sure.
Absolutely.
So I always like – oh, sorry. Go ahead, Frank.
Oh, I was going to say, I mean, from a game plan standpoint, I felt like Purdue came into the game with a pretty good game plan. Clearly, defensively, we wanted to kind of force them into those tough, mid-range pull-ups that they just hit. And we wanted to turn Trace Jackson Davis into a playmaker instead of letting him score, and he embraced that role. In my opinion, we were coming quick with the double teams and making him kind of pass out, and he'd pass out, kind of at the top of the key, and they'd swing it over to Miller Kopp, who for an open three. I mean, they just did a really good job of taking what we were willing to give them and working with it. And just an odd game, when you look at it on paper. If you were to tell me that we would have 21 offensive rebounds to IU's 5, we would out-rebound them as a total by 16. We would shoot 21 more free throws than them. That's a recipe for a win right there. And not only that, we only turned the ball over how many times?
10
times. Yeah. That's a recipe for a win. So if you were to tell me those things, it's like, oh yeah, that's a 20-point win. Jalen Hood-Schifino answered the call that night. I mean, he played an unreal game, and he is. I mean, he is a pro player. There's no sugarcoat. I mean, he is a pro player.
That's right, Jalen. Go to the NBA.
Can't leave. I don't want you to be around anymore.
I think he is projected as a first-round pick now. I mean, I
think I saw him like 18th or something like that.
The unfortunate injury to Xavier Johnson has given him a lot more exposure, and he's done well with it.
Yeah,
well, absolutely. I think one of Indiana's biggest challenges is that they do have 5 stars on the bench. They have these guys on the bench who's not happy. So I know one of them personally, and I watch his mannerism and his posture, and it's not good. Mm-hmm. Not good. They all want to play and want to be stars. Sometimes, even last year with Purdue's team, I thought Purdue's team was more talented than this team, but this team was more of a team than last year's team. They're willing to do the dirty work. They play for each other. They're not looking for the NBA and the lottery money or getting calls from agents every week. They're locked in. That's why I think they're going to bounce back. I think they're going to finish strong, and I think they're going to really look forward to getting to the dance. Because once you get the pressure off of them, it's a lot of pressure being number one for a lot of the season on these and coming from everybody, including Border Nation. So being number one, oh man, and then you lose one game, oh man, the sky is falling. That's a hell of a lot of pressure for these kids. So they got to experience that, and now that pressure is moving away from them because they lost to Indiana twice, and they're not number one anymore, even though they're still ranked 5th or whatever they're ranked. I paid no attention to that, but I also think it has helped them to relax a little bit. I don't think they'll be tight anymore, because now no one's expecting us to do anything. So right. So now I think they're gonna respond and get back to playing well. Wouldn't it be neat to start over this third season like they started the first part of the season? And so that's
what I was gonna say. It's just like the beginning of the season where it just playing by the seat of your pants and playing with house money, for a lack of a better way to say it, you know?
Absolutely.
And that's where I feel like that middle third of the season, after the PK 85 and we did really well, that they, not that they tightened up, but once they got into conference play and played teams that they knew, it's almost like not that they tried not to lose, but they tried not to make the bad play. Where in the PK 85, like Brayton's like, screw it, I don't care. I'm just going to dish it, and whatever happens, happens. Where now he's trying to make the perfect play instead of, and it's kind of like in my job and everything else, you know, you do worse when you think instead of just react.
Oh, absolutely. And you see that on the shooters, you know, you see them hesitating now, you know. Lawyer never used to hesitate. He's hesitating. Brandon's hesitating. Even Mason Gillis hesitating on their shot instead of just releasing it. Just still release. You can tell. Just watch them when they play and see how quick Lawyer will get that thing up. It didn't matter if hey, I'm feeling this, I'm shooting it. Now he's kind of hesitant, and so I just think that comes with experience and being relaxed, and they'll get back to it because they're all great shooters. And they won't ever shoot. I don't think they ever shoot like that in the big game again. I'm sure one or two guys will step up. And that's what we need, 1 or 2 guys. Just not everybody sometimes, but just 1 or 2 guys to step up.
And I've said it for 4 years now, and we talked about before you got on, Walter, that once we get out conference play against teams that you play twice a year, every year for Painter the last 18 years or whatever he's been at Purdue, that playing against teams that we don't see all the time, we're going to have a lot better luck, I think. Because we saw that non-conference, we were undefeated in non-conference. So, like, I mean, you just, you're
110% right. That's how the Big Ten is. You got people forget you're playing against some of the best coaches in America, and who has an awesome staff. Their job is to shut your top dogs down. And that's the scouting report. That's what they go over all week. How to shut these guys down.
And they know what you're going to do with your top dog to be productive.
Every time. They know the game plan. They know exactly what you're going to do. Now, the question, are you good enough to stop us from doing what we want to do? And we wasn't good enough to stop Indiana from doing what they did this past weekend. But hopefully we'll learn from making an adjustment and slow them down, and we'll play better and make some shots the next time we get a chance to play them. Hopefully we get a chance to play them again.
Yeah, I'd love to see him in the Big Ten tournament.
Me too. So
yeah, I'm excited to see, you know, the Wisconsin Illinois efforts, because you mentioned that we made the last 2 threes of that IU game because it didn't really matter anymore, right?
Yep.
Right.
Well, we've got the 25th banner. So what happens these last 2 games? Do we see like that loose team that ripped everybody up at the PK Invitational? Like, I think that's what we have a chance of seeing. I think we have a chance of everybody saying, okay, cool, relax. Like, everybody was freaking out, like we're going to squander the 25th title. We're going to, you know, mess it up at the end of the season. We got it now. We got it. So just go play your game. And I think we could see a pretty big effort.
And if that's the case, that scares me for the tournament. That scares the hell out of me for the tournament. Like, I think they're going to be fine in the tournament? Yes. And because we're playing teams that don't know us, but if we come out just gunslinging, doing our thing like we did in the PK 85, then I'm going to be real nervous that these guys are letting the pressure get in their heads. And then, I mean, what is it? 6 weeks? It's all pressure, you know, or 4 weeks or whatever it is. The March Madness is all pressure. So, I don't know, but in Painter, I trust him to get these guys right. I trust him to get their minds right and do everything right. So, and you know, it's 6 games, you know, we've won 6 games straight against non-com teams. So,
and we even did that in the Big Ten too. Right after we lost to Rutgers, we won 8 in a row. So
exactly. So,
but to touch on what you were saying, Walter, you know, we weren't good enough to beat IU this time. We want to see them in the tournament again. We did lose to IU twice this year. That stings. It sucks. Nobody likes that. But I will say it has been awesome this year. The rivalry, I feel like, has gotten a new shot of adrenaline put into it, and it's been awesome this year. I mean, Indiana was probably, bar none, the most hostile environment these guys have played in all year. It was great. Purdue, they hit 123.2 decibels. They matched their all-time decibel record within like the first 10 minutes of the game against IU. I think it was probably within the first 5. I think it was at that timeout whenever we were up 13-6, that first initial media timeout. So, even though the games didn't go the way they wanted to, man, I'm so glad that this rivalry is getting back to what it is and what it has been. And, real quick, I'd just like to hear about when you were in that rivalry, you were playing in that rivalry. So, what was it? And that was when like you said, the Big Ten was gritty. It was physical. So what was it like going down to Bloomington and vice versa, having those guys come up to West Lafayette?
Well, I was very fortunate because I got a chance to split with Indiana. One year, I got a chance to get swept by Indiana twice, and I got a chance to beat them twice. And so I experienced all three. So we beat them. My junior year, beating them in Bloomington was one of my biggest thrills.
I can only imagine.
Yeah, we were the first, I think, Purdue team to beat them in Bloomington.
Oh, wow.
In the first, in the start of the second half, I hit like 5 or 6 shots in a row. And my brothers and sisters was going to school there at the time. So it was special. But I just remember the feeling that we got when it was so quiet. It got so quiet in Assembly Hall. And that's when we kind of like ran them out the gym. But just a joy. And then playing against them when they were awfully good, and they were the best team, I think, in college basketball. Best team I played against with the undefeated team and Scott May and all those guys, and 6 guys went to the NBA when we were freshmen and sophomore, and having a chance to beat them 3 out of the 4 times, really right there. I told Ray Tober, Landon Turns, our good friends, Wayne Rafford, who's no longer with us, and Wayne was a very good friend of mine. He called me up and I said, anytime, any place, anywhere where y'all want to play. So, I mean, that's just how we felt. We loved playing against each other. We respected each other enough, but we do battle. We just loved the battle. And playing in Mackey, when they came in there undefeated and Scott May happened to break his wrist that one game against us, and CBS was there on national TV, and Johnny Wooden was there, and all the we knew we arrived as playing against Indiana, but just the battles, man, just the hard battles, and the fans would go crazy. I remember campus was totally different, out of this world. The week of the IU game, it was special. Professors talking about the Indiana basketball game. You go to class and they're talking about the basketball game. They're not talking about, Walter, what you guys going to do this weekend, that kind of thing. You walk around campus, and sororities and fraternities and dorms have sheets made out. They painted players, pictures, the artwork of players, and said Dynamite. Wayne Walls with J.J. Walker, Dynamite. Go beat it. I mean, all around campus. You come go anywhere on campus all week, not knowing it's IU. Signs everywhere, local businesses, and everywhere. Beat IU. So it was a different world. I tell people all the time,
That's so much. That's so awesome.
I tell people that I never had to get up for Indiana. My whole thing was I had to calm myself down. So leading up to the game, 2 or 3 days before, I had to make sure I was coming down, not going up, because I didn't want to
isolate yourself so you didn't get too juiced up.
Oh, absolutely, because I was ready. I was ready to go. It didn't matter. I had to calm down so I can be ready to play. But that's one thing I remember. Just never have to worry about us being fired up, because our practices was as tense as they possibly could be. Coaches was off the chart. They were coaches at a different level too.
Yeah,
it's special. It's a very special rivalry. I have a lot of respect for their program, but like I said, any place, anytime, anywhere.
Yeah, and actually talking about kind of the rivalry, getting back to it. I actually sent something in our group chat earlier that Fox Sports posted that there was like 1.73 million people watch the Purdue IU game Saturday, which was the 6th most watched college basketball game in the history.
Wow.
That's
and
so
that's
much
up with
fun.
like national championships and everything.
That's what they said ever. I don't know. I mean,
crazy. That is crazy.
Yeah, it's so to read exactly what they said. Oh, regular season game.
Okay. That's still awesome, though.
I mean, awesome. You're still looking at some of the Duke, North Carolina games. You're looking at some of those games, in the history of college basketball, the 120 at least years of college basketball that's played, and we're 6 all time. Like, it's it's a very special time for Purdue basketball and even IU basketball to have this rivalry be as fun as it is, because it was so lopsided for a long time, and then it was lopsided on the other side for a long time.
But
So
you know you've arrived when every time someone beats you, they storm the court.
exactly, exactly.
That's
What
when
is
you
it?
know
6 out of last 8 times, 7 out of last 9.
That's when you know you've arrived.
Yep.
And
That's what they said about Alabama every time they get beat in football. You know
Absolutely.
you're there because they storm the field every time you do it.
Absolutely.
And you know both teams have arrived when you don't drop a spot in the rankings both times you lose to them.
Exactly.
Absolutely. That's a great point. That's a
really good point, actually.
Absolutely.
I grew up in the kind of the midst of the Louisville and Kentucky rivalry, and I actually live in the fringe of that right now. And I try to explain to people who are fans of one of those schools, it's just different. It just like it's the rivalry between those two schools is more among the fans and I feel like with Purdue and IU, the players. I mean, we saw Mason Gillis, refusing to get out of the way and not shoot free throws before the games. A lot of those guys were recruited by both schools or from the state of Indiana, grew up, rooting for one team or the other, or didn't get offered by one, got offered by the other, and so it's personal to them, as well. And it's hard to draw parallels to other rivalries, in my opinion.
I think the only one that's close is Duke, North Carolina.
Yeah, and I love the from the first game against IU in Bloomington, Trace chest bumping Gillis, and Gillis just like points at him and just starts laughing. Oh man, I would not want to get in a rock fight with Gillis, man.
No,
that guy,
that dude looks like he can throw some elbows, man. Like, he scares me.
Just ask David Jenkins.
He just smiles when he get hit. He just smiles like, okay.
He just laughs.
I love it.
He's like the Russian in Rocky IV. He's just like
he's 6'6" and goes up against 7'4" Edie in practice. Nobody on another team is going to scare him or make him.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. Good stuff.
Awesome.
Cool. Leading into this week, then, Wisconsin and Illinois?
Mm-hmm.
Is it Wednesday, Sunday?
Thursday, Sunday. We got Wisconsin Thursday, home against Illinois on Sunday.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. Oh, I'm off.
Wisconsin's
Sunday.
A team we've struggled with in recent years too.
Yeah,
they swept us last season.
It'll be senior night. It'll be senior night there, senior day, and trust me, they're going to bring everything they got. So
so real quick, this is kind of an impromptu question, but I kind of want to get your opinion on it. Is what is senior night like for the players? Like, is it very emotional towards the bad side or the good side, or is it just kind of individual feeling, if that makes sense?
It's individual, because I hated senior night.
Yeah.
I hated senior night because my whole family would come, and they all wanted to see me before the game, and I was the type of person that. But they were family, so I couldn't say, "Well, I'll see you after the game."
Yeah.
So I would see them, and it would take me off of my routine.
Oh, okay, I see that. Yeah.
And then I would want to overly play well for them.
Yep.
Instead of being relaxed and just doing my normal routine.
That was going to be my next question: is what the energy kind of was like.
It was very, very emotional for me.
Yeah.
Because you start reflecting back on your journey.
Right.
Your teammates.
4 years and teammates.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I never really played well on senior night. In high school, I didn't do it. In college, I didn't do it.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
Yeah, but some people, they play well senior night.
They just eat up the moment. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know.
Well, does anybody have any thoughts on Wisconsin? I know the last time we went to the Kohl Center, Chucky Hepburn hit that insane game winner. I mean, it was just like the stars. I mean, Jaden Ivey goes down, hits an insane shot, and then Chucky Hepburn follows it right up with.
Were you just recapping all of last season, or what was it, like 4 last-second shots that beat us last year? So
yeah, it was something crazy like that. But hey, Brad Davison, he's gone. So that's great.
Chucky Hepburn's doing it again this season. I mean, he's I think something like the 50th ranked player in 3-point percentage this season in D1 among rotational players.
I
So
know who
he's
Morton's playing.
yeah. I mean, he's extremely athletic. He's definitely. I mean, he's not. Wisconsin is very, I'll use the term old school, in the way they play basketball. They still kind of run that swing offense that they ran under Bo Ryan for a long time. And but the one interesting thing I think about this game is that they have some skilled size, right? Steven Krause is a 7-footer, and he's shooting almost 30% from three. So I'll just be curious to see how we decide to guard that kind of pick and pop action that I like to run with him, and how we'll kind of have Edie defend that. But I think it's ultimately going to come down to how we defend that and how we handle Chucky Hepburn, and then how we play through Wisconsin's defense. But I think the big key is going to be rebounding. Wisconsin's just not a great rebounding team. They're actually one of the worst rebounding teams in the country, and us being one of the best. I think that's where we can really steal some points there.
I honestly think playing Krause, I think we're going to do what we did against Trace Jackson Davis and have Caleb first play him. Because that worked really, really, really well. Like, that was a great adjustment by Painter to have first on TJD. And I think that's the same thing they're going to do on that kid. Because first is, while he doesn't have the height as him, the athleticism will make up for it.
One of the things that scares him about Wisconsin is the two big guys that they play. Wall, is that his name?
Yeah, Wall.
And then Sejan, the freshman.
Mhm.
They're going to him a lot offensively now. I mean, the last game they were running sets after sets after sets for him, and he can take it off the bounce. He can shoot the hell out the ball. He's from Indiana, so
Yeah.
he'll be
Of course
pumped.
he is.
My biggest thing I'm concerned about Wisconsin is playing at the Kohl Center. That place is a house of horrors for everyone.
Yeah, at least it's not like at least I don't have any injuries associated with that place like the barn in Minnesota.
Thanks for that bad omen there, Damon.
Yeah, I shouldn't have said that. I'm sorry. That was a really bad thing to say. So that never happened. We'll just go ahead and rewind that. We'll have to edit that out.
The barn's one of the toughest places to play when I was in the Big Ten. I know that. Williams Arena.
Oh, really?
Oh, it's
That
tough.
place is
No question.
Yeah, what was, in your opinion, what was like the toughest venue you ever played in?
A lot of it has to do with the opponents, but
Right.
Williams Arena. I mean, you talk about they used to do I don't know if you guys know about it, but they used to do like the Globetrotter tricycle pre-game show with Flip Sanders, the former coach, and come out and ride the tricycle and the people be there like 17,000 be there an hour before the game. I mean, and then it'd be like 50 below zero. And then you come from your hotel room to the bus to get to the arena, and the fans would be crazy. And then you had to walk down the big step where the benches were down, not on the floor. And we had to walk up to sub into the games. And it was just a tough place to play. And they're right there on you. And they had the old school, environment. They just said anything and did anything to you, and everything went. So that's one of the toughest places to play when I played. Also, I think, of course, you can say Assembly Hall because of the teams, but also East Lansing was tough to play. Wisconsin wasn't so much. I hated playing at Northwestern because they've done a nice job renovating now, but back then it was a dump. I hate to say that, but it was.
Yeah.
And
like a football stadium.
A lot of dead spots on the floor and that kind of thing, and always cold and no heat, that kind of thing. So
no heat.
No, it was
good
always,
gravy.
Always be cold there. Always be cold there.
Oof. Take an extra 20 minutes and warm up.
Oh, absolutely. So
yeah, and then we finished the season. We finished the season against Illinois at home. So yeah, how are you guys feeling about that?
It depends on what Illinois team shows.
Go ahead.
I know Chris and I were saying the same thing. It depends on which Illinois team shows up. Is it the Illinois team who what's a good performance they had this season? The Illinois team which scores almost 1.2 points per possession against Iowa, or sub 9.9 points per possession against Ohio State. I mean, it just they've been all over the place this season in terms of performance. And when they are on, they look like one of the best teams in the Big Ten, but they just aren't on consistently. I
I'm
think a
just
lot of
glad
it
we
has to
played
do
this game at
with
home.
it's the biggest advantage, in my opinion, to the one game series of Illinois this year is that we're playing them at home. But they just have they have on paper what could be the most talented team in the Big Ten. They had problems, just getting everything to kind of click with a lot of new pieces, with the two transfers from Baylor, Terrence Shannon, Sky Clark leaving midseason. It's just kind of been a whirlwind. So
And I'm not trying to be disrespectful to Illinois in the slightest, but it seems like they have guys who haven't bought in yet. Or like that rough spot in the middle of the season, it just seemed like guys weren't clicking, they didn't buy in, like there was a lot and that honestly, that's a lot of the problems when you bring in a lot of those transfers is trying to get all those guys, they bring in 3 or 4 transfers in the offseason, at least 3, I think. And trying to get all those guys to buy in at the same time under the same system in 2 months leading up to the beginning of the season. And right there about January, it looked like the wheels were coming off that truck. Like it was just all over the place. Like it looked like Brad Underwood was going to start choking players. I mean, it was just obnoxious on the sidelines at times. But that just what seems to me. That just seems like they just have a couple guys that aren't completely locked into the system.
A couple of things that stand out for me with Illinois is that they're very talented and their matchup problems when they're playing well. And Sanders going downhill and Myers shooting that ball like he's capable of shooting it. And then they're very, very talented. And I think that Meyer has won a national championship with Baylor. So he had a couple of kids that's won from that Big Ten program. So if they start to get it, and pass that on, they're going to be very, very dangerous out in the Big Ten tournament moving forward. They have talent to do it. That big guy off the bench who hadn't showed up, he can play. He's very talented. He's inconsistent, but if he starts to play and they put it together, they're going to be a tough out. And it's going to be a matchup problem for a lot of people. I don't like the way we match up with them individually, but I don't like the way they can't match up with us either if we're playing.
Yeah. I don't like that Meyer kid. That Meyer kid makes me nervous because when he can get on, when he was at Baylor, when he got rolling, that kid would just.
He was a difference maker. I thought he was a difference maker in the tournament. No question about it.
Yep. Anytime, the minute he started hitting shots, it was lights out for Baylor, and he's great defensively. I like his defensive play. I like how he rotates around and covers the weak side when he needs to, strong side, all that stuff. I like him a lot. I was really hoping when he transferred that Purdue would pick him up. Not that we needed him, but it's always a pipe dream.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So,
a big question for me is how do we handle Coleman Hawkins, right? Because that's really a type of player we haven't really seen yet this season. That kind of 6'10" point forward.
He's very Kevin Durant-y.
Yeah, that's a great comparison. I was going to say Ben Simmons, but he can shoot threes. So, yeah, Kevin Durant.
He's their best player. He's their
best.
Put a
burn on Ben Simmons.
He's their best player, in my opinion. He is their best player. I think we just can't let him go off and do something he normally don't do, and that's score 20 points. I think we keep him with 10 points. He's going to get 10 rebounds. He's going to get 5 or 6 assists. Stay in front of him, make a couple of shots, and keep him off the board because he's
to frustrate him. Because I think when you frustrate him, he gets in his own head, and then he struggles a little bit. He reminds me a lot mentally of kind of, and this is no disrespect to him, but Jaden Ivey. Like when you start to kind of press him a little bit and kind of bump into him and get a little physical with him, he gets a little pissed off. So.
Yeah. He's a great player. I like its all around game for sure. For sure.
Well, hopefully Purdue can pull it out this week, go 2-0, end the season on a high note, and then just move into the tournament with some momentum. So, but before we wrap up here, Russ had some thoughts on women's basketball, I believe, and then the Purdue baseball team. So, Russ, if you want to share those.
Yeah. So we actually have some other sports that happen at Purdue. I know we talk a lot about
Really?
football and men's basketball, but we've got quite the athletic department going on right now.
Yeah.
Purdue baseball just got started, I think a couple weekends ago now. They're just 2 series in. They play like in Texas. They usually play a series there and then a series or 2 out in like the Carolinas. But they went 3-1 against Holy Cross down in Sugar Land, Texas. They hit 8 different guys went deep for a total of 11 home runs.
Wow.
So it was pretty good series offensively. They split with NJIT 2 games apiece in their next series. So they started out 5-3. So I know last year they were the last undefeated team in the country, but we aren't going to get there this year. Greg Goff's the head coach. He's in his 4th year, coming off his first winning season last year, though. So it's another program that's kind of headed in the right direction and headed up.
Yeah.
So get out to Alexander Field, catch a game or 2 this year, see them. But also we got women's basketball who are moving forward a little bit. They're kind of like, this is that portion of the season where they're about a week ahead of what the men's game is. So they're headed into their Big Ten tournament this week, and they're kind of a bubble team. So they had a tough loss at Minnesota. Minnesota, I think, is 101 in the net. So it's kind of a tough loss. It was a road loss, so I think it only goes down as like a Q2 loss for that. But they could probably use a win in the Big Ten tournament. They play Wisconsin. They're the 7 seed. Wisconsin's the 10, and Wisconsin's not a tournament team. They're, I think, even lower in the net, 111 in the net. Yeah, so we could really use a win against them. We're, I think, the 5th to last team, or the last team with a bye, according to Charlie Cream of ESPN. But
I was going to say that. Damn you.
Connor Grohl on CBS has us as a 9 seed, so pretty comfortably in. So I don't know that we have to beat Wisconsin, but it'd make it a lot easier come Selection Sunday, because it still will be a little bit stressful. I think we're just, it's a product. Our season for women's basketball is a product of having kind of what Walter was talking about with the old school Big Ten on the men's side, that we have like 6 women's team in like the top 15. And so we might be the 7th or 8th best team, but we have to play all those teams once or twice in the season. So, we've had quite the gauntlet, and we've got some really good wins. So I think they get in regardless, but it would be good to beat Wisconsin and maybe even win a 2nd or 3rd game in the Big Ten tournament.
Sure.
For them. So.
Yeah.
And one last thing too, it's Combine Week. So,
it is Combine Week.
Support our Pro Boilers as they go in. We've got 5 guys at the Combine, right? Aiden O'Connell, Charlie Jones, Payne Durham, Jalen Graham, and Corey Trice are all going to be there. So, pretty well spread out too. So any position group you see on this week performing, there's a good chance you're going to see a Purdue guy out there. So,
yeah,
cool.
And seems like Durham really made a name for himself in the Reese Senior Bowl. So excited to see how he does in the Combine and where he ends up in the draft. So. Well, we'll go ahead and wrap up here. But Walter, thank you so much for being on. It was a great time. I really enjoyed talking to you. It was a great conversation. Love to hear your passion for Purdue, your love for Purdue, and your thoughts on this year's team and as well. And just everything that you've done outside of Purdue as well is just great. You just got a really positive attitude, very passionate person, and we love that here. And so that's great. And we hopefully people listen to this and that spreads throughout the Purdue community, because we need positivity, like you said. When we come off these losses, we need fans that are encouraging, fans that are speaking good things into these players, because like you said, we know that these guys are reading things, whether they'll admit that it gets to them or not. So love that, love all your stories and your experiences. So thank you for being on. I really appreciate it.
Appreciate you guys.
Thank you, sir.
Great. Keep doing great things. Appreciate you guys so much. Go Boilers.
Absolutely.
Go Boilers,
Gracefully
indeed.
broken. Go buy it. Gracefully broken.
Thank you guys.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
All
Thanks.
right.